Welcome to the Thursday edition of Altitude Advantage. I am your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table from me, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla, and we have our digital media contributor, Susanna Ware, right on this side of me. Susanna, say hi.
Hello, everybody. I'm back.
Hey! You saw she had 4 words, so the camera cut to her.
Camera got to her. She's learning. She's doing a nice job. Progress, week by week.
Week by week, week by week.
It takes the rookies a little bit to get going, you know?
Just a little. But, one rookie that's really shining is quarterback Bo Nix, who won NFL Rookie of the Week. Really exciting to get that accolade for him. He won that for Week 10, his performance in Kansas City, the first Bronco to win this award since Pat Surtain back in 2021. So a really big honor for the rookie. Obviously, we're going to get into that. A lot of a discussion about this upcoming matchup with the Broncos hosting the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. So a lot to get into today, but we always start with the comments, Aric. And I think we have a couple queued up, right?
That's right, yeah. We appreciate when people go to our official YouTube page and leave some comments for us to read, some questions as well. These are from, I believe, after the Broncos' 16-14 loss to the Chiefs. So some grumpy fellas, some grumpy folks in general.
So it's a diary.
Grumpy fellas, grumpy ladies.
It's a diary
Everyone's
entry.
grumpy, but it's okay. Jonas Holst, 9293, said, this game made me sure that I need a Knicks jersey. He looked pro. And I think that was a big takeaway. We'll talk more about Bo, but the fact that Bo took a step as the franchise-type guy, that was a big game for him.
Also, I'm a big fan of supporting the team store, so.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, every week it's like, what could possibly have been purchased this time? But there's something.
I mean, I always,
It's nice.
got to stay with the Broncos gear.
Some salute to service gear.
Exactly.
Salute to service
I
mugs.
held on to this specifically for this week.
Oh, you waited. Suze, what's the last thing you bought at the team store?
Because like week
A
one.
hat in week 1.
I actually need a new hat. I don't have a beige one. I need it.
Gotta have a beige hat. I mean,
I
if you don't
got
have a beige
to.
hat, what are we even doing
Has to go
here?
with the vibes.
That's true. And then J. Prez Bronx says, do you prefer your corn on the cob, or he says in a cup, but I think that means like just corn.
Corn on the cob. I'm from LA. We have the paleteros that pass by, and they have their elotes in the.
Oh.
Yeah,
For a second, I was like, what does corn on the cob have to do with LA? But
it has to do
now I
that
know.
we have
Now
our
I know.
vendors that come by, and they always run the cob. They offer it in the cup, but my sister used to get that when she had braces, and I'm like, nah, eat it off the cob. Unless you have braces.
That's even worse
then-
for braces, isn't it?
No, because if you're on the cob, that's really going to get stuck in your
That's what I'm saying is that's worse.
Oh, yeah, that's worse. Yeah. You have to get it in the cup. But see,
You do it with like what is it, cotija cheese? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's nice.
You saw the accent? Cotija. I heard it.
Watch out, people. Yeah, that's good stuff. You got the little sauce in there. Yeah.
Little cheese, little, hot pepper flakes, hot Cheetos.
Oh, hot Cheetos.
Yeah, they have the hot Cheeto, like, dust on it, too.
Oh,
And they have chili powder.
that
All the fixin'.
interesting. Suze, what are your corn takes?
I like corn on the cob for like the vibe of it, but it gets stuck in your teeth.
The vibes.
The
But
vibe
like a
of corn on the
barbecue,
cob.
a barbecue vibe with some corn on the cob, pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, what are you eating at a barbecue?
Corn on the cob.
Well, but what's the main course? Because I'm going to criticize you here in a second, depending on what you say.
Well, then I don't really want to answer.
It's fair. I think there's a notion that people say, like, we're having a barbecue, and then you have burgers and hot dogs. That's not a barbecue. That's
Barbecue.
You're talking like
that's a
you
cookout.
need chicken or
You need to have something that's been
ribs.
barbecued
You
for
need
it to be a barbecue.
I would agree with that. I was
Okay.
not. My answer would not have been burgers. I know it's easy to say after the fact, but
Yes.
it would not have been.
Even if it was an easy answer, it's smart of you to still say it.
Gotta go beef ribs all the way.
Beef ribs. Yeah, if they're barbecued, then it can be a barbecue.
Yeah. My brother's a big barbecue guy, so beef ribs, tri-tip. Yeah, you're making me hungry. Okay, what's the next comment?
Yeah, okay, we got Seth. I don't know what this says, so we're just going to go with Seth. The end of this game sucked and was hard to watch. However, all caps, that's how you know that Seth means it. The result does not speak to how the Broncos played. We nearly won and led for most of the game. 95% of the time that game is done and over. Meat was left on the bone, but we showed up barbecue and kicked. Oh, I can't say that either. Arrowhead was dead silent. The Chiefs pulled it off. But after that Ravens game, the real question of whether we could compete with elite teams is no longer a no. We're still growing. We're still under the cap money. And on Sunday, we showed massive, again, all caps. Seth is fired up. Promise for the future this season and future seasons. Also, how about Estime, huh? Yeah, Estime. What about Estime?
How about him? I mean,
Pretty good.
He was definitely a guy that really took advantage of the opportunity and getting more carries. And even head coach Sean Payton said that they're going to try to put him in the mix more because of his production. He had a couple really big moments in the game. If you look at the stats, you don't think that he had a really big game, but he came up crucial, especially in those third down situations.
Carried the rock. Suze, your thoughts on Audric Estime?
Yeah, I mean, they put the ball in his hands a lot on that final drive, so shows they trust him, and carrying around the football for those week or two in the locker room and in the facility must have worked, because it looks pretty good on that last drive. So
we also, people don't know this, but if Susanna has a typo, we make her carry on a keyboard for the rest of the week just to remind her not to do that.
Yeah, I can confirm that really is gonna knock the hazing allegations.
No one needed to say the word hazing. It's not hazing to make Audric Estime carry the football. It's just simply a coaching tactic. Carrying the keyboard is also a coaching tactic.
Okay. Sure.
That's the reaction most rookies have. They're like, seems sketch.
They don't know what's good for them.
I'm gonna trust you on that. All right. Well, like we said, I
need more comments.
You need more
questions. Well, not this time, but like, I need people to leave more questions.
Yes.
Things to discuss. There were some people chimed in
on what?
About the mascot situation that we talked about last time.
The Royal Rumble.
People forget about the mascots.
Sir Purr was
what did they? Sir Purr.
Which that got complicated real quick. So we're like, wait, are these the live animals, the actual mascots? Can we pick the animals? Is it people versus animals? There's a lot of rules that need to be put in place.
Bulwark TYR said the Bengal tiger and lion are going to eat you.
What about Sir Purr?
Quentin Caldwell said, how about the Browns? They're a dog. Woof. And then Jair said, why do our reporters, in quotations, got to be so cringe? Jair, why don't you use the right hour, and then I'll take your opinion seriously.
Yo, wildin'. I'm sorry we're so cringe. I'm not cringe, though. You cringe. You can't even
Cringe in quotations. Or actually, sorry, reporters was in quotations. Cringe was not.
Are they calling you cringe?
They're calling somebody cringe. Then WRM Hall 4735 just said, ha, 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 ha. I don't even know what that's a reference to.
That was a great recreation of that.
TYWI1234 said, that's kind of weird, actually. Never mind. Y'all don't go look at that comment. It's not that weird, but it's not weird.
Okay. That's one of the things that's why I don't look at the comments most of the time, but like I do look at them for altitude advantage, because we count on you guys to leave your comments, questions, things like that. Obviously, make sure you guys subscribe.
Can't wait to hear what Jair has to say next week. They're going to be mad. They're going to be grumpy.
He'll be fine. You'll be all right. You'll live.
I don't really care.
Well, one thing we do care about is Bo Nix winning Rookie of the Week for Week 10. Again, just looking at his numbers, he currently leads all rookies in completions and passing touchdowns, while ranking second in passing yards. You know, it's interesting, like when you look at the win and loss column, it's easy to just assume like, oh, like he's not having the best year. But when you really look at the numbers and his growth from week one, Bo has really put out, a good workload of showing like, look what I can do and look what I'm capable of, especially when you're going toe to toe with two of the best defenses in the NFL, and the bounce back game that they were able to have from week 9 to week 10.
Yeah, I would push back a little bit. I think 5-5 with a rookie quarterback is spectacular. I think especially the fact that you're in playoff position, the fact that he's been able to do that while he's been learning is really impressive. And I think even if Bo looked like this and the Broncos were 2-6, no, that doesn't add up. 2-8. There you go. Even
You're
if
the writer.
I know. Not the math guy. I don't do the salary cap, so everyone can relax. But yeah, like if Bo looked like this and they were 2-8, I'd still be like, listen, the season hasn't gone the way you wanted to, but Bo has looked pretty darn good. And I think that last week was an example of how Bo can look good without winning, because I was talking with one of the members of the media before the season, and we talked about what does success look like. And I was like, well, like if you could, like a winning record, which is 9-8, it would be the first time since 2016 that you do that. Like that would be a massive success. Like I'd sign up for that right now. This was before the year. Now, obviously, I think your expectations are you want to get to the playoffs, which might be 10 wins. But back then, that was kind of, I was like 8 or 9 wins. That would be spectacular.
Yeah.
Or not as many wins, but he looks really good. And we talked about, well, how, what is the situation where he looks good, but you don't win that many games? Just because you figure if he looks good enough, you're probably going to win games. And last week was an example, I think, of he played really well, obviously won Rookie of the Week, but the Broncos don't come away with a win. It's against a good team. But the fact that they have 5 wins and they're 500 and in the playoff position when, and Bo would tell you this, the first couple of weeks he didn't make great decisions a few times. He's facing new things from a defensive perspective. He's still getting used to, even snaps under center or calling NFL plays. Like all of that was new. And so it wouldn't have been a surprise to see him struggle for an extended period of time. And just look at what some other quarterbacks go through. I mean, obviously Anthony Richardson doesn't have nearly as much college experience, but he's struggling in Indianapolis. They sat him down. Caleb Williams, the number 1 overall pick, is really struggling in Chicago. Like, this is hard. And so the fact
it's a hard
that
transition.
And not just transition, like it's hard to do at any age and any amount of experience. And so the fact that he's winning while he's making this adjustment is pretty impressive. And if you look at the last few weeks, really like this last month or so, obviously he was an offensive rookie of the month, but I saw that I think since week 5, he's 4th among all quarterbacks when he has a clean pocket in terms of, I believe, QB rating or EPA, one of those statistics. And then since week 4, he's thrown 10 touchdowns, 2 picks, which is 5th in the NFL. He's got a 94 passer rating since week 4. He's averaging more than a yard more in yards per attempt. His intermediate passing game has gotten way better. I saw our friend Nick Kosmider, he tweeted his completion percentage went from like 30% on intermediate throws to 70% over the last few weeks. And so he's playing really good football right now, not just for a rookie, but if you look at a lot of these advanced stats, he's like a top 12 type quarterback, even top 10 in some of these areas. And we've always talked about, like, or I have at least for the last several years as the Broncos have looked for a quarterback, you don't have to find Patrick Mahomes. You don't have to find Lamar Jackson or John Elway or Peyton Manning. If you can have a guy that can be a top 10, top 12 guy, like and we'll talk about him, a Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, Jalen Hurts, Justin Herbert is, like, I think people would argue he's a little bit higher, but like in that mold, if you can find somebody like that and you have a great coach like Sean Payton and you have a defense that's playing like this, that's enough. You don't need, and granted, we don't know what Bo's ceiling is, but I'm just talking about what he is right now. And I did see some quarterback rating this week where he was 27th or 28th, and he was below some guys who are really struggling, like Daniel Jones. And I'm kind of like, what are you watching? Not to take a shot at Daniel Jones. I know he caught a little bit of a stray there, but I think the level that Bo is playing at is really impressive. And as you look down this final stretch here, and why I believe the Broncos can find some success and get back to the playoffs, it's that Bo is only going to get better and better.
Yeah, I think you look at what he was able to do over the last, this last game against the Chiefs, again, knowing everything, all the hype kind of going in. And Garrett Bowles, after practice yesterday, was talking to the media. He said, like, after the game, like, he just hugged Bo and just told him, like, this loss is not on you. And he's like, he told him how proud he was of him. And I think to have that from the veteran guys to come up to you and kind of, I know no one likes to lose, and especially on this team, the guys really kind of hard. We don't like to lose. Bo said that in his press conference on Wednesday. But I think it's a talent there that people are seeing. And head coach Sean Payton shared a little bit of that when he said after the game, Patrick Mahomes, had a quick exchange with him and told him, like, you found one, and I believe he told Bo, like, they're going to have a lot of good games to go against each other over the next couple of years. And I think to have that, from, a Super Bowl winning quarterback and one that's leading their team currently to an undefeated season, I think that says a lot. And it was a heartbreaking loss. And for him to hold his head up high, this team to still rally around Bo, I think that's something they can build off of. But how do you see them, kind of going into this next matchup against the Falcons, and how can he replicate that success there? Yeah,
I think when you get the attention of a guy like Mahomes, that's a big deal. And that he can say, you saw Travis Kelce on his podcast, there were some swear words involved, but basically was saying, like, he was slinging it, he was ripping it, he can really throw it, he was making plays. I think those guys aren't saying that just to say it. Yeah. You don't often, especially like Kelce talking on the podcast, he wasn't even asked about Bo Nix. He just brought it up out of the blue.
And that's his own time. It's his own time. They can talk about anything, and they wanted to talk about that.
They did, yeah. And it was actually worth watching. I've learned more this week about field goal units and field goal blocking schemes than I've known in my entire life. And I thought one of the better explanations was from them. So their New Heights podcast was worth, if you want to like a deeper dive into what Alex Forsyth's being asked to do in that situation, a little bit of a tangent there, but it was worth listening to. But I think if you're this fan base, and I think they do realize it, right, is that more and more people every week are like, Bo is our guy, and Bo is the guy. And I'll get back to the Falcons game in 1 second, but this feels to me like a big moment in terms of everything this franchise has been through over the last 8-9 years after Peyton Manning retired. There's just been this search for like who can be that guy. Yeah. And there's been stopgaps in terms of like when Joe Flacco was here. There's been veterans that they thought maybe could turn it around, whether it's Case Keenum, or not turn it around, but keep it going. Case Keenum, Russell Wilson. There's been young guys, Drew Lock. Yeah. And there's been veteran bridges like Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah. Bridgewater. That was nice. But you finally, and again, it's only been 10 weeks. You don't want to like go crazy, but it finally feels like you've found that guy. And Elisa, it changes everything in terms of like, you can almost take this deep breath of like, we have our guy. We don't have to worry about it anymore. Yeah. We know that long-term he's going to be the one. And then you can just build around him. And now you've got all this cap space coming up down the road of, and you've got a rookie on a rookie contract, which is a huge deal. It's like, let's build this thing and let's go. I was talking to our friend Mike Kliss, and he was saying, 25, 26, like with Bo Nix and Sean Payton together having this partnership, it feels like a team that should be in the playoffs every year and should be maybe even competing for a Super Bowl. So I think that and knock on wood that this all goes well and Bo continues to play well and the Broncos continue to find success. But I could see looking back in a few years and being like, this Kansas City game, even in a loss, was a moment where people were like, holy cow, we got a guy. Yeah. And so that is, I think it's going to be I've unfortunately seen a lot of losses over the years since I've covered this team, and some of them blend together, like especially in 2017, 2018, 2020. This feels like one you'll remember, not just because it was a tough loss, but because of, like, if that kick goes through the upright, this week is like Bo Nix celebration week around the country I don't think
I've ever wanted a win as much as I did that game. For multiple reasons. Like, Nick Bonito had such a big game. Bo Nix was playing really well. Drove down the field. Cortland Sutton had a touchdown. Bailey, it was just the perfect story. And obviously being in the media, like, we love a good story and a good, kind of, not redemption, but following a Week 9 performance to come off and knock off the champs. So it was a devastating, moment. That's part of my fandom, covering this team, being a fan of this team for so long. But then the other side of the, reporting side, and I was like, wow, he really made strides in this direction. And the way that this team has talked about him, and, Adam Troutman had mentioned, he had the Monday press conference, and you wouldn't think that they lost because they were just like, oh, we're good. Rest of the week, rest of this week, we're going to take it 1 week at a time. But if we can do that against the champs, we can do that against anybody. And I think that was a big key takeaway from that game. Suze, what do you think?
Yeah, I think even the fan response, has been really positive. Like we were saying, I think you could have seen a lot of fans be like, wow, we had the game right there and we couldn't get the job done. And instead the response has been, we had the game right there. That means the next time around we'll be able to do it. So I think that was a huge positive as well, just having the support of the fans and even the fans recognizing Bo could be the guy for us down the stretch. So,
and if Bo can play at a level, it's Kirk or Jalen Hurts or, you don't I think it's hard to expect anybody to be Patrick Mahomes, but
the way he was playing, but
Burrow or I'm trying to think of guys around the league that I think are like Baker. There's a group of guys that you can win with, and and that's all you need is a group to win with, and it feels like Bo is on that track. As you look to this week, I think you'd love to see him continue that, and I think there's plenty of reasons to believe that he will, in part because he has been pretty good when he's had a clean pocket. I saw a rating this week that when you average out the pass and run win rates for offensive lines. Denver's has been the top in the league. So he's obviously getting help from guys up front in Garrett Bowles, Quinn Miners, Ben Powers, Luke Wattenberg, Mike McGlinchey. But he's played with poise.
Yeah.
And I also think you're a big baseball fan, obviously. Kind of boring to me, but you like it.
Doesn't get it. It's okay.
Like when guys go up to right before they go up to bat, they put the donut on the bat, right? Mm-hmm. And then when they get up there, they swing free and it feels light.
Right.
I think that, and every defense is good. Every defense poses challenges. Right. But I think when you face a defense like Kansas City and you show that, it's almost like you take the donut off the next week or the next weeks. And maybe you see some defenses that are ranked a little bit lower. The Falcons are pressuring the quarterback on just 27.4% of dropbacks, which is last in the NFL. Mm-hmm. They have 9 sacks, which is last in the NFL. Their pressure rate is last in the NFL. It's been a little bit of a tough sledding for the Falcons. They're allowing the highest completion percentage in the NFL. Mm-hmm. They're tied for 25th in passing touchdowns allowed. So you look at all those things, and because of the way that Bo Nix has played when he's had time, it's been impressive. I mentioned I think 4th or since week 5. I believe it's an EPA. When not pressured, he has when not pressured this year, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks, a 94 passer rating. So you look at this game and it feels like the Broncos' strength could match up with a Falcons' weakness in terms of being able to throw the ball. We'll see if they get Josh Reynolds back. He's been back at practice.
Yeah.
You still want to keep the running game going. The Falcons have a good have a good back end of their defense with A.J. Terrell, Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, but their front has struggled a little bit. They're beat up. And so, can you run the ball, play action, give Bo time to throw, and get after these guys? It feels to me like the Broncos could have some success offensively. And obviously, you still got to go out there and do it. But, over the last few weeks, the Falcons have given up 30, 20, 34, 26, 21, 20. So we'll see what the Broncos are able to do. But certainly a big opportunity, and you'd like to see Bo come back and build on it. I saw a stat that he can become the first rookie since Peyton Manning. It would just be those two to throw for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns in 4 consecutive home games. So anytime it's just you and Peyton Manning, that's good. That's good.
That's a good sign. And for reference, on the Falcons only having 9 sacks this season, the Broncos currently have 4 players with 5+ sacks each. So that does speak volumes as well, the way that this defense has really gone after the quarterback. And I think a big thing, especially with Kirk Cousins, is causing that pressure, right? And obviously he plays fairly well against the blitz, but you do want to make sure that you're able to kind of bring that pressure. Zach Allen is a big part of that. Suze, what have you seen from the defense as they've kind of been progressing over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think getting after Kirk Cousins is going to be really important this week. He's not the most mobile like Lamar Jackson and like Patrick Mahomes. And so if you can capitalize on that, take advantage of that. But at the same time, he does have the 3rd highest passing yards out of the quarterbacks across the league right now. So, definitely should not be underestimated by any means. But I think pressuring him is probably how you're going to find the most success. Yeah,
Zach Allen leads all D tackles with 42 quarterback pressures, and Kirk Cousins was sacked 3 times last week, 0 touchdowns, and he had a passer rating. But he does have a high passer rating when it comes to quick throws, 114.2. So he's able to get the ball off. But I think one of the things that this team has really kind of focused on, especially the last 3 weeks dealing, as Sue said, with mobile quarterbacks, is just causing that pressure enough to have them make a mistake. And I think the key thing, again, is to try to get the takeaway and hopefully get a takeaway early.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously the Broncos, they did a lot right against the Chiefs. They did not force a takeaway. And I believe they did not force one against Baltimore either. And so you've got to get back to that. You can play good defense. I think one of the impressive things about this team is that they've played good defense even when they haven't forced takeaways. But I still think that when you're in these games against there's going to be a group of teams that you can beat when you don't take the ball away. I think when you're playing another segment of teams, Chiefs included, a 6-4 Falcons team included, that you're going to need to take the ball away from them and give Bo Nix and the Broncos offense an extra possession, steal one there. Kirk is interesting because, and Suze, you mentioned it there, like, and at least I think you did too, when he can get the ball out quick, when he does throw under 2.5 seconds, it's 72% completion rating, 10 touchdowns, 1 pick, 114 passer rating, which is second in the NFL. But can you get him to hold it? Yeah. And because when you do, when he takes time to throw, then he has more than 2.5 seconds. It falls to 66 completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, 7 picks. Passer rating drops by 25 points. I believe that against the blitz, he ranks 25th in completion percentage against the blitz, and obviously the Broncos blitz at the highest rate. I think what's important to remember is that the reason the Broncos can blitz so much and the reason they're effective blitzing is because they have those guys on the back end in Pat Surtain and Riley Moss and Jaquan McMillan. And so some teams blitz because they cannot cover. Right. And so you've got to blitz to give your guys a chance. The Broncos blitz and they have guys that cover. And so you get an extra second on the back end of maybe the quarterback's looking downfield and he's like, that guy's covered. That guy's covered. Boom, Nick Bonito's there. Right. Boom, Jonathan Cooper's there. And so
there's so many.
There's so many different guys.
There's so many different guys.
JFM, Zach Allen. I mean, somebody's coming after you. But I think that's why maybe I look at the quick throw for Kirk and wonder, is he going to be able to throw it that quickly? Because these Broncos defenders tend to smother guys. They tend to play good pass defense. The one thing that is a little, like if there's one number, we get this packet. Yeah. One number that's like a little bit of a red flag is that Kirk has 8 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 106 passer rating in 3 games against Vance Joseph-led defenses. Now, one of those games was when Kirk was in Washington back in 2017, I believe. And like that was a defense that, was a little banged up. It was not a great offense, so they got put in a bad spot. Right. And this Vance Joseph defense this year it feels different and has had more success, obviously, than in previous years. So I don't know how much weight that holds, but I think the keys are, you've got to try to find a way to put pressure on Kirk Cousins. And if you can get a turnover, I think he was strip sacked last week. If you can find a way to do that, get a short field, like give yourself some easy ones where you're not having to drive 80 yards to score. Right. And if you can do that, you'll have some success. The Falcons, if you look at their point totals, I think they've scored more than 26 points in 5 games this year. The Broncos have only allowed more than 26, or have allowed 26 or more twice. One of those was week 1 against the Seahawks. So once in the last 9 weeks, like the Broncos offense versus the Falcons defense feels like an advantage in some ways for Denver. Yeah. This one is more of like an evenly matched battle because Kirk's still a really good quarterback. They've got weapons in Darnell Mooney, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson,
Drake London.
So
USC guy.
They've got. That's how you know.
That's how I know. I was there when he got drafted.
If they got a USC guy, that's how you know.
I mean, that's how you. Well, one number I'm going to look at too is Kirk Cousins has 10 giveaways in 2024, second most amongst quarterbacks this season. So he had, I believe, 2 picks in that game versus Pittsburgh. I think like week 1 or a couple weeks back. And then you have an interception this past week against the Saints. I mean, the Saints have had a lot of injuries too, and you kind of look at what are the ways that you can attack this team. And so the takeaway is obviously a big part of it. One thing I was really looking at is that Big Kirko, is actually, again, I don't know how much weight this actually holds, but he is listed on the Falcons injury report with a right shoulder, right elbow. He was limited on Wednesday. They have a pretty lengthy injury report here as I was looking at it. But I never know how much weight to put on that, especially on a Wednesday, especially because I think Lamar Jackson was also on the injury report.
Lamar didn't practice for the first 2 days and then threw for however many yards. And some teams put everybody on the injury report. Some teams don't put very many people on there. It's a little bit of gamesmanship, I think, each week with the injury report, for sure. But
playing games out there.
Kirk can swag surf, though. Suze, can we see your best swag surf?
Absolutely not.
That's why his shoulder hurts. He swag surfs too hard.
That's possible.
Could be.
It's possible. Yeah, I think that's a good point about him giving the ball away, and you got to find a way to get those because it feels like that could be the difference. I wonder, like these teams are both coming off tough losses. Yeah. But they're different types of losses, right? Like the Falcons in some ways is more, be careful with my words here. It's tough to swallow because the Saints had lost 7 in a row.
Yeah.
You should have won that game. And I talked with Tori McElhaney of the Falcons. That'll be up tomorrow for people that want to look at the opposing view for this game. It'll be on wherever you get your podcasts or denverbroncos.com. Plug. But one of the things Tori was saying is that, like, there's no way they should have lost that game. And that's one that you need to take care of and you need to win. And so I think there will probably be a little bit of the same way that the Broncos were angry after Baltimore.
Yeah.
It feels like maybe the Falcons could come in here angry versus the Broncos, whose loss was more like devastating.
Yeah.
Just because you like know that you should have won and you didn't win, and then you got to pick yourself up and get back to work. And it feels easier to me, and I'm just a silly little reporter. What do I know? Like, it feels quotations. Yeah, cringe. I'm just a cringe.
Just a
cringe quote
reporter.
reporter. I would find it, like, the team that's angry, that feels easier to bounce back than the team that's like emotionally devastated.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Broncos have to make sure, like, you got to be ready to go, and you got to find a way to be ready to match the intensity that the Falcons have from being. And I'm guessing here that they're angry and annoyed and all that.
Of course.
Like, you've got to find a way to match that, because you cannot let this loss to the Chiefs linger and come out slow and make an early mistake and find yourself in a hole, because it's a good enough Falcons team that they can definitely come in here and beat you. And so
they have the weapons out there, and that's including Bijan Robinson and like we said, Drake and all those kind of players that kind of can make big plays. I mean, Kyle Pitts has had a pretty impressive season. I think he's had like 5 games with at least 60-plus receiving yards or something like that.
Yeah, Mooney in London, they'd be the first. A typo in the research notes. This destroys it. This is going to hurt me.
Gotta make him carry around a keyboard.
Everything I believe in is like shattered here. But anyway, they're the third receiver duo, or they're on pace to become the third receiver duo in the last 30 tiers. I assume they mean years, to rank top 8 in receiving and receiving yards, or receiving touchdowns and receiving yards. So that's pretty impressive. Like, and I was talking with Tori, there's no 1A or 1B here.
Yeah.
Like, there's no A and B. There's 1A and 1B. Like, these guys are both really good. Like you said, Kyle Pitts is good. Bijan Robinson. I think one of the things with Robinson you got to worry about is out of the backfield. And he's certainly gotten more involved. He's getting 5 more touches a game in the last 5 games. He's averaging 130 scrimmage yards per game since week 6.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how this Falcons offense tries to attack this Denver defense.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just feel like if the Broncos can hold up in protection and let this Broncos offense play the way they have the last couple of weeks, especially Bo just continuing to be more comfortable, I feel like he's going to find success. And if you can get out to a lead, make Kirk throw, I feel like they're going to get to him a few times. And there were some times Benito hit Mahomes last week.
Yeah.
I'm like, how the
heck?
I didn't say that. How the heck did Patrick Mahomes hold on to that football?
Speak on it.
And so hopefully some of that luck starts to go the Broncos' way, and they can get one from Kirko, who I think that quarterback show that he did like completely changed, I think, people's perception of him. Very likable, fun guy. He's swag surfing. He's got the chains. Susie, you have one of those, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
What does yours say?
It says Big Suze.
Big Suze.
Yeah, Big Suze. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, Big Suze.
Big Suze. Excited for this matchup. And really, I know we haven't touched on it yet, but I am excited to see Justin Simmons come back, and I know it'll be emotional for him. He was here a long time and a special player, special person.
A lot of the guys are pretty emotional about him coming back. Pat Surtain has mentioned that a big part of his leadership came from just learning from Justin Simmons, and just they're still in a group chat, with each other, and there's going to be a lot of trash talk in that group chat kind of going into this matchup. So he's really excited to have him come. And Cortland Sutton had a really funny story when he said he texts. He's like, I jokingly told him, like, hey, bro, you see me coming out the middle? Remember, we're friends. And I'm like, I think you guys stopped being friends the second the ball snaps in the first quarter. So, but I think they're all really excited, but I think they also understand they want to go out there. They have a job too. They've seen a lot of familiar faces so far this season, and I know it's fun to see a familiar face they just play again, but the biggest trash talk comes when you're able to take that win. So I know Justin Simmons is going to come bring his A game as well and going to try to get, pick off a Bo, but I know that this team is going to try to, kind of take him out the game as much as possible.
Yeah, and that's where running the football, attacking these intermediate areas. Like Justin is kind of that deep third safety, and if you launch one deep, he'll be back there to get it. But teams haven't challenged them in that way a lot of the times, and I would assume that the Broncos would be aware of that they've got two great safeties back there. But I think it's important to say, like, obviously Justin Simmons did not make the playoffs in his tenure here, but came in 2016, was a great guy on and off the field, a big team guy in the locker room, multi-time Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. His family's still here. Like, he set up roots here in Denver, does a lot for the Denver community, and just a special guy. And so
he was really entrenched. So you can tell, like, even he understands that he's, like, he mentioned, like, Bronco for life. And there's always something about guys that leave to a different team from the Broncos that they always have a special connection back here, regardless of what other team or what other city they play for. I feel like he's one of those guys, along with, like, Vaughn and kind of these guys that kind of leave. Yeah,
absolutely. And Sean Payton said it was a really difficult decision to move on from Justin. Obviously, he was one of the veteran guys that they parted ways with this offseason. And hopefully at some point post-career, Justin comes back and you're able to honor him and, do whatever. But this week, like you said, you still got to find a way to you can dap him up and say hello and give him a hug before the game and after the game. But during the game, got to find a way to go attack this this Falcons team and find a way to get an important win because you need it. Playoff-wise, and I know that we talked about this Monday, but it's not an AFC game, so it's not like as critical that, in the way that like facing the Bengals would be. But I just feel like this team needs a win just so they don't get to the point where they've lost 3 in a row and you're feeling that kind of 3-game slide.
Yeah. Well, also, they have a chance to kind of sweep that division. The Broncos do have a chance to sweep that division. So, I mean, I know that doesn't really mean anything, but, it's a little victory.
Sean Payton said he doesn't care.
So Seuss doesn't care. That's smart.
He just said, I don't really think about it that way. So,
And some guys think about it. They're probably like, it's just a little fun to say,
But
it's fun to say.
The Broncos have not lost 3 consecutive games since weeks 1 to 3 in 2023. So
coming in with the stats, Suze. We see you out there. I mean, but I think, like you said, a big part of that comes from slowing down Bijan Robinson, really getting your running backs going, and stopping the run. I mean, this Broncos defense was able to really limit Kareem Hunt's productivity, held him 2.5 yards per carry for only 35 yards. This was the guy that was really running the ball really well, 100-yard games, and then they were really able to stop that. Even at the goal line, they were able to stop him from getting that touchdown and holding the Chiefs to a field goal. So I think that's one thing you have to replicate. And going back to what Sean Payton said a couple weeks ago, like the future success of this team is going to rely on those two things. And I think they've been stopping the run very well, but that test does not stop. That test comes to you every single week, and the Broncos need to continue to pass it.
Yeah, he mentioned run game, run defense, turnovers. And in returns to some degree. And the Broncos did 3 of those 4 things, and they almost beat the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They did not get the turnovers. And if you had forced 1 or 2, you think maybe the Broncos are able to find a way to get that win. So it is critical, I think, for the Broncos to get one versus Kirk and the Falcons, or get multiple versus Kirk and the Falcons. But, yeah, just according to Next Gen Stats, the Broncos currently have a 53% chance of making the playoffs. It jumps to 62% with a win, but it's more of, to me, like a mental thing as opposed to like the actual percentage, because down the stretch, conference wins matter, head-to-head wins over the teams in the race. Like, depending on what happens with this Chargers-Bengals game this weekend, which is a big one.
It's a big game.
Like, you're going to go into that game against LA or Cincinnati, and it's probably going to be like a win and in situation where if you beat Cincinnati, you're going to the playoffs. Or depending on what happens in this game, maybe LA trips up a few times. Could be you beat LA, you're going to the playoffs. And so those games from, quote, matter more because they're AFC games. But I do think there's something to be said that you don't want to slip into this 3-game losing streak. Not a lot of playoff teams lose 3 in a row and then come back from it. I think there is this sense after you almost beat the Chiefs of thinking, like, we can play with anybody. We can beat anybody. You'd like to follow up that hypothesis by beating someone, right? you don't want to.
It's all so simple.
You don't want to like come out of feeling like we were really close against a really good team and then have a hangover effect and lose your next one at home. And these home games down the stretch, it's the Falcons, it's the Browns, it's the Colts, and it's the Chiefs who they're probably going to have the 1 seed locked up in that game. So we'll see. If they're undefeated, maybe they go for it. If they're not undefeated, maybe they rest guys. But there's a good chance that if you're the Broncos, you need to win all 4 of these home games down the stretch. And so can't afford to – I mean, again, it's not like your season is not over, but I just think from a momentum standpoint and Sean Payton talks about groove and a rut, there being a fine line, I don't think you want to take a step closer to the rut at this point in the year.
Yeah. Well, like Sean Payton said, the sky is not falling, and I think they can't react that way, right? And they have to make sure they go out there and handle business. And, Jonathan Cooper, I caught up with him a little bit, and he mentioned that he was like, we're happy to be home. He's like, but we want to show Broncos country, like, what we're able to do. And he's like, and these fans, they deserve a win at home, and we want to make sure that we continue to do that because it is important to protect home field advantage. And like you said, the closer you get to the end of the season, the more these games matter, especially for this team that's kind of, you're 5-5, 2-4 in conference, and these road games against these conference, rivals became a lot bigger. You have the Raiders at the end of this month, you have LA next month, and the Chiefs to end the season. So it's one of those things that you want to make sure you're able to kind of like not lose what you learned, but you also do not want to be the team that like, oh, we almost had it every week, right? And I think that's one of the things that they're really trying to get over the hump. And I think that's one thing that Bo talked about in his presser on Wednesday, where he mentioned like, I feel like we're turning the corner. We're almost there. Like we're getting over the hump, and it's almost like he was excited to kind of see that. And I see
Susan's tapping.
She's tapping. She's like,
Elisa, let me talk.
She's like, coach.
I'm just going to pose a question because it goes back to that point. The Broncos have now been shut out in the second half 2 consecutive games, and so Bo
3
said
consecutive.
It's not what the stats say.
Maybe 7 points over the last. Yeah, maybe it's 7 points over the last 3 games. Is
Weeks
that right?
9 and 10. Shut out.
Well, they spelled the Falcons wrong, so. No, they scored a touchdown against Carolina in the second half. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway.
This is on a roll. Go ahead.
My question, because Bo was talking about we're close, we're about to get over the hump. What do they have to do to not let that streak continue?
Well,
there's many things.
Yeah, I think that stat is a little fake.
It's in the
real.
research notes.
It's real. But like
it's real.
Well, but I think it's. I'm going to push back a little bit,
Push
just
back,
because
Suze.
I think
push back on who? Your own question? Or
you
me?
we pushing back
on
your
you
answer.
pushing back on my question.
Okay.
Just because I think they had a ton of momentum approaching halftime of the Chiefs game, right? You come out in the third quarter, you kind of let it slip a little bit, where you could have been in a position had things gone a little bit different towards the end of the first half, had you come out a little bit differently in the second half, they could have had an opportunity to maybe not quite put the game away because you still have Patrick Mahomes who finds a way to stay in games, but make it a little bit of a different game. And so I think the third quarter, and I think the last couple weeks, they've pointed to the third quarter as an area that needs to improve. So I'll rephrase my question and just ask what needs to change in the third quarter, or maybe those middle 8 minutes of the game that we've talked about to kind of be in a position where if you have the chance to put those games away or get a little bit closer to putting those games away, how can you do it?
Yeah, I thought they were actually better in the middle 8 against the Chiefs because they forced a 3 and out on the Chiefs when the Chiefs got the ball back after halftime. Like that was a critical moment where the Broncos have allowed a touchdown after that questionable illegal contact penalty. They did miss a field goal, and that, there was maybe a misread by Bo, then a pass that maybe Sutton should have hauled in. There was the offsides call on Sutton on the spike. All 3 of those things are closer. Maybe you get points there. It's 17-10. But I do think the way that they were able to hold the Chiefs was a big deal. Offensively, you've got to stop being penalized, or at least limit it. Last week, Estime had this big run that gets called back.
Yep.
You're down, Mims has this great return. Estime gets this run. You're down near the 40-yard line. You probably need one more first down and you're getting points. And maybe you hold on to it and score a touchdown and go back up 21-10. So penalties are a big deal. The Broncos did avoid turnovers, which I think is a step in the right direction. Yep. Bo had no turnover-worthy plays against the Chiefs last week, which he was the first quarterback all season to do that.
6 penalties for 45 yards lost.
Which
by the
yardage
Broncos.
wise isn't terrible. And like
It's the key. It's when they happen, though. It's the key moment in the game that these penalties happen that, as Sue said, like cause that momentum to like kind of continue to go back and forth when ideally the Broncos want to sustain that. And obviously that late touchdown by Travis Kelce.
I mean,
in
it's
the
like
first half.
it's the best defense in the league over the last 2 years. So it's not like you're playing a league average defense. You have faced this last week a really good defense in Baltimore. You were down 21 points when Bo got the ball back, so you're forced to throw it. I think that's where when I said the stats a little fraudulent. Like the Broncos had the ball inside the 10-yard line twice against the Ravens in the second half and went for it both times. If you're in a closer game, you're probably kicking field goals there, and then you're not talking about the scoreless second half. But it is true that they haven't scored. They certainly can't do that this week. It's the same thing with earlier in the year, and I think against the Steelers, the Jets, and the Chargers, they didn't score in the first half, and then they made runs in the second half. So it is a work in progress offensively, but I think this team is closer to figuring it out. It's penalties. It's not giving the ball away. It's capitalizing. Like, again, in some of these games, the Raiders, for example, the defense gave them a couple of short fields, and they were able to take advantage. They haven't gotten as much of that, certainly the last 2 weeks, where they've been able to take advantage of short fields. Chargers, they didn't. So some of these teams, I think, if you're a top-tier offense or whatever, you can overcome some of these things. But when Sean Payton talks about the margin for error, this team has to play complementary football, and it's got to play defense that sets up the offense, and the offense has to avoid mistakes, and you got to take advantage of turnovers and not turn it over yourself. This is just a team that where it's at in the building process. It's not as simple, I think, as just saying, I'll go out there and drop 35.
Well, I think it's also the game just is starting to slow down for a lot of these rookies, right? Devon Bailey mentioned that after practice on Wednesday where he said, like, yeah, the game's starting to slow down a little bit for me now, so I can kind of see where I'm needed and where I need to go and be in the right position. I think that's something that is a growing pain for all rookies, and I think that's one thing to also take into consideration. Like, it's really funny when Bo was talking on Wednesday because he's like, yeah, these young guys. And it's like, Bo, you're a young guy. Like, you're a rookie too. And so, but the way that his kind of poise is there where he's trying to be a leader amongst the rookies to be like, look, like, that rubs off on the rest of like the Audric Estimes and the Devon Baileys and the Troy Franklins and these kind of guys are getting into the rotation. When you're going against two big defenses back to back, you're bouncing back, and now you're going against, the Falcons at home. I think this is the time to show, as both of you guys have mentioned in this podcast, of just like, what have we taken from these last 2 weeks? Because we've had a really big loss. We've had what could have been a really big win, but we went toe to toe, and now it's like, okay, now this game on Sunday, let's go out there, get a big win, and make that statement.
Yeah, if we're still having this conversation about not scoring in the second half in 2 weeks, it's a much bigger deal, I think, than weeks 9 and 10.
Just trying to find that consistency. I think consistency is key, and that's one of the things that this team is starting to get, in the flow of. I think even Bo's connection with Courtland Sutton has gotten better, and it's just, again, consistency is key, and kind of seeing the guys out there creating these relationships and making sure that they're on the right path to, again, get in the win column, because like you said, they're in the thick of the playoff race, and it's something that they don't want to speak too loudly, but it is on their minds, like, to make it to the postseason. I think that's one thing that they really want to focus on. It's funny because when you said that about the Cincy game or the LA game potentially being, a win and in kind of situation, when the Broncos got into the playoffs when they won the Super Bowl, they beat the Bengals on Monday Night Football. That was my first game here as a fan. It was really, really cold. But that's it for this episode of Altitude Advantage. Again, I am your host and team reporter, Elisa Hernandez. Across the table from me, we have our lead writer on DenverBroncos.com, Aric DiLalla, and our digital media contributor, Susanna Ware. We are on our way to IT because both of these people need some keyboards to carry around for the rest of the day. So until then, we will see you on Monday, and we will see you on the game on Sunday.